Thank you for being here. My name is Paul Grogan. I'm the president of the Boston Foundation, and here today speaking on behalf of the Race to the Top Coalition, a coalition of 25 business, civic, and community organizations that helped pass the landmark Education Reform Bill of 2010, which gave us more room to expand charters and brought critical reforms into school districts. But we're here to make the case again that we should not be putting a cap on success. I particularly want to thank the students who are here, arrayed behind me. We've got students from the Holyoke Community Charter, from the Brook Charter School, and I know others, and I think it is very loaded with meaning that these children are arranged on these stairs because their charter school is helping them climb. Is that right? Are you climbing? And I also want to thank all the parents who were here this morning for your commitment beyond your own children to try to see that children like yours have the same opportunity. So here's where we are. Under the leadership of Chairwoman Alice Peisch of the State House of Representatives and House Speaker Robert DeLeo, legislation has passed with an overwhelming margin in the House of Representatives. Legislation that continues the momentum for education reform here in the Commonwealth. But now we are back with only 40 days left in the 2013-14 legislative session to urge the Senate to do what the House has already done and pass the bill that will allow district schools to have the tools they need to improve, allow Horace Mann schools to continue the good work they started 4 years ago, and allow public charter schools some more room to grow and serve the more than, and listen to this, 44,000 children on waiting lists for charter schools across the Commonwealth. As you all know, in 2009-2010, the Boston Foundation was proud to be part of the Race to the Top coalition, which successfully advocated for the most significant education reform legislation in decades, the Achievement Gap Act. And while this groundbreaking legislation is leading to significant improvements, in too many places, low-income and minority students still are falling behind in low-performing schools. We need to continue to move forward. When we rallied together in March, we heard about what is working from parents, school leaders, and concerned citizens. And we asked, how can you possibly justify putting arbitrary limits on educational strategies that are clearly working, that are clearly delivering great results? Chairman Peisch heard us, and the House of Representatives heard us. Now we need the Senate to hear us and to act. 44,000 students are on a waiting list, being denied a place in one of the nation's most remarkable success stories, charter public schools in Massachusetts. Urban charters regularly top school MCAS score lists, but just as important, charter students improve at a rate that far outpaces their peers who aren't fortunate enough yet to have won that charter school lottery. Many of you know about the report from Stanford University that found that a typical student in a Massachusetts charter school gains 1.5 more months of learning per year in reading and 2.5 more months of learning per year in math than their district counterparts. And in Boston, the numbers are even more impressive. 12 months more of learning and reading and 13 months more in math. Almost unbelievable, but it is fact. How can we read those results and not open the possibility for more students to attend these terrifically successful schools? It's difficult to comprehend. That's why we propose lifting the cap in the state's lowest performing districts to allow more students access to this difference-making opportunity. The bill will also increase the flexibility for some of the state's most challenged traditional public schools. Under current law, only when a school is considered failing can teachers and administrators be empowered to make critical decisions on teaching and learning to benefit the students. We've seen what those powers can mean to turn around in innovation schools inside the school districts. We're talking about the Orchard Gardens and the Trotter School in Boston, Cuss Middle School in Fall River, Merkland Elementary in Lowell, the Zanetti K-8 school in Springfield. There's too much success to ignore. Why wait until a school is declared a failure before giving it a chance to improve? We propose expanding these empowering reforms to level 3 schools that need the reforms before they decline further. Also, the Horace Mann schools created by the Achievement Gap Act in 2010, the so-called in-district charter schools, are bringing quality education to the same students who were stuck in failing district schools and serving as yet another bridge to bring the best practices of charters to the district. These reforms will have the greatest impact on the students who need it most, those in our lowest performing districts, our gateway cities, and of course the city of Boston. We need to create a system where families, not a lottery, select the type of school their children attend, and where all schools, charter and traditional, can be held accountable for their results and given the resources needed to improve. We need the support of our leaders to have the political courage to make the right choice and ensure thousands of children get the education they deserve and the help they need. Now let me introduce our lineup of speakers this morning, leading with the Senate sponsor of our legislation, Senator Barry Feingold, who is a great example of the political courage that is required to make progress in this difficult area. Barry was elected to the House of Representatives in 1997 and is now serving his second term in the Senate, where he represents the communities of Andover, Dracut, Tewksbury, and Lawrence. He's our champion. Please give him a warm welcome, Senator Barry.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right. Good morning. Morning. All right. Well, I'm glad to be here today. Paul was kind enough to mention about a little bit of my background, but some of you may not know that my family actually started off in the Georgetown housing projects in Hyde Park. And I was given opportunity. And I want that same type of opportunity for every single child in the Commonwealth. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we have to put aside differences and do what is best for our kids. And to quote a good friend of mine, parents don't care what you call the school, charter school, public school, this or that school. What they want is a good education for their kids. Thank you. Thank you. And they want the best possible learning environment to give their kids the best chance of success. And having the pleasure and the honor of representing the city of Lawrence for so many years, we would see increased funding, but we weren't seeing the results. But with some of the reforms that we have passed, what's going on in the city of Lawrence is a game changer, and we have results to prove that. Now, I hope I don't steal all of Scott's thunder, probably will, but the Up Academy Leonard in Lawrence is an in-district charter school, and the model is working. There is no lottery, and they're union teachers. But if we didn't have Up Academy in Boston and have their success, we would not have the model to do what we've done in the city of Lawrence. So it is true, the success that we are having in charter schools is being incorporated into our public schools. And the statistics speak for themselves. The Up Academy sixth graders rank number 2 in Massachusetts for median student growth in math at 83% in 2013. In 1 year, math proficiency has tripled from 19% in 2012 to 56% in 2013. These students are only 5% away from the statewide average. And I can tell you, 3 years ago, we never would have thought this was possible. And these results speak volumes of what we can do if given the opportunity to do more of this statewide. So if we're serious about giving kids the best possible education here in Massachusetts, and we're serious about achieving the Massachusetts dream, we need to utilize the tools given to us in the 2010 Achievement Gap Law. And we need to continue making improvements to education reform. And we need to get rid of this one-size-fits-all approach. And we need to lift the cap. And to give tools to low-performing districts like they have done in Lawrence. I want to thank each and every one of you for your advocacy and efforts. I can tell you firsthand, this is not easy, but it matters that all of you are here today. And I ask all of you to continue this fight so that kids across the Commonwealth, regardless of their zip code, can achieve the Massachusetts dream and get as good of an education as anyone here in the Commonwealth. So I thank all of you for coming here today, and let's keep moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator, for your leadership. We appreciate it so much, and we'll be with you every step of the way. As I said earlier, part of what brings us to this moment of opportunity is there's too much success to ignore. And one of the schools that is setting the bar for what is possible in urban education is the Boston Preparatory Charter School, and we're pleased to have their executive director, Sharon Lazanke, here with us this morning. Sharon?
Good morning, and thank you so much for being here this morning, and especially to the students and their families. It's wonderful to see everybody. My name is Sharon Lazanke. I'm the Executive Director of Boston Preparatory Charter Public School, and we are located in Hyde Park. And we just finished our 10th year of operations. The mission of our school is to prepare all students to graduate from a four-year college and to embody in thought and action lifelong ethical growth. Next year, we will be at our capacity. We will serve 400 students in grades 6 through 12 and provide direct graduate support to 100 alumni. But that is all in terms of number of students we can serve in 6th through 12th grade unless we lift this cap. Boston Prep students are representative of the city. 50% hail from Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan, 25% from Hyde Park, and the balance from neighborhoods all over the city. 70% are African American, 25% are Latino, and 5% are Caucasian. 75% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch, and 20% are special education students on IEPs. In short, they represent the city of Boston and Boston Public Schools. To those students, we are pleased that we are able to provide an excellent college preparatory education. To date, our students have routinely outperformed their peers in the city of Boston, in the state of Massachusetts, routinely scoring 98 to 100% advanced or proficient on their ELA and their math MCAS exams. Further, we are pleased that 100% of our students have applied to college, 100% of our graduates have earned an acceptance to a four-year college, and 100% of Boston Prep alumni have matriculated to college the fall after they graduate. Not a single one of our graduates has not matriculated. We also know that getting into college is only the beginning, and that getting through is truly the hard work. National statistics suggest that only 59% of young people who enter a four-year college get a degree within 6 years, and that number drops to 10% for low-income students. Given that we know this, we have built a graduate support program for our alumni to address those challenges. We provide financial support. We connect students and their families to academic and social emotional resources, and we have full-time staff dedicated to helping students overcome those roadblocks while they are in college. And we are pleased that in our first 3 years, 85% of our alumni are on track to that 4-year college degree. And we are also quite proud that U.S. News and World Report recently ranked Boston Prep the highest performing open enrollment high school in the city of Boston. Despite this good news, we, like all charter schools in Boston, face a sizable wait list. Last year, we had 15 spots for 9th grade. We had over 100 applications. A year later, we still have only 15 spots, and that number has grown to over 315 applications for those 15 spots. Demand is simply growing at a rate faster than we can match. And not only that, but we would love to add a 5th grade. We would love to double in size. We would love to think about replication, but we need this legislation for that to become a reality and for us to begin looking families in the face and say, yes, we have a spot for you, versus what I do all too often, which is, I'm sorry, your waitlist spot is much too low. It's not going to be a possibility. And anyone who's had to look a family in the eye and say those words knows just how heartbreaking it is and what a closing of opportunity it is for our young people and their families. So I urge the legislators and all of us here today to continue our support for this bill, not only for the charter schools here in Boston, but for schools, students, and families in the district and throughout the Commonwealth. We need this legislation for our young people's future and for the Commonwealth's future. Thank you so much.
A big part of this legislation is about allowing the independent public charter schools to grow, and based on their performance, they deserve that opportunity. But this bill is also about building on the 2010 progress in the districts by making it easier for the districts to adopt the practices of charter schools that are so clearly delivering great results. And our next speaker really embodies that opportunity. Scott Given, who is the founder of the UP Education Network, a former head of a charter school who's been willing to come into the district, into a tough situation, but getting great results. And this legislation is going to make it easier to do what he has done. Scott Given.
Good morning. My name is Scott Given, and I'm the founder and CEO of the UP Education Network, a Boston-based nonprofit school management organization. We have one goal: to rapidly transform failing district schools into extraordinary schools. Said differently, we get hired by school districts to take over the full management of the lowest performing schools and provide those schools' students with the world-class education that they deserve. We owe thanks to the state legislature and to the governor for creating a new type of Horace Mann in-district charter school via the 2010 education reform legislation. At that time, my brand new organization was getting courted by states and districts all over the country to turn around schools there. The new law was the primary reason we decided to stay here and launch in Massachusetts. When we turn around schools in Boston, we partner with Boston Public Schools to restart failing schools as in-district charter schools. By doing this, failing schools can get critical flexibilities that are prerequisites for their improvement. By making a failing school an in-district charter school, the school gets autonomies in the areas of staffing, teacher evaluation, staff working conditions, budget, use of time, and academic programming. And the schools do all of that while remaining inside of the school district and hiring unionized teachers and other staff. Already, we have used this tool to achieve strong results at our first 2 turnaround efforts in Boston. First, we converted the struggling Gavin Middle School into Up Academy Charter School of Boston. In just 3 years since this conversion, student proficiency rates on the math and English MCAS exams have nearly tripled. And for the last 2 years consecutively, students demonstrated the most growth in mathematics of any public middle school in the entire state. And we have achieved these results while retaining nearly all of the students that had attended the Gavin Middle School, including high populations of students with disabilities and English language learners. Our second Boston effort, the conversion of the low-performing Marshall Elementary School into Up Academy Dorchester, has also been highly successful. After just 1 year, we are projecting that student grade level proficiency rates will increase from approximately 10% to nearly 50% this year, in just 1 year. Moreover, more than 1,500 families sought entry into our school in its second year, and last year this was one of the worst schools in the entire state. We need the legislature to act to preserve the successes of these schools and others like it. I want to thank the House for taking up the bill, and I appreciate the current focus and attention in the Senate as they deliberate this critical legislation. Let me be as clear as I can. If the bill currently sitting in the Senate does not become law this session, these schools' very existence is absolutely in jeopardy. These two schools, arguably the two most rapidly improving schools in the state, can be closed down. The law currently requires the sign-off of the head of the Boston Teachers Union for renewal at the 5-year mark, even though this approval was not required when we got the schools going. So next year, if the head of the Boston Teachers Union wanted to close down Up Academy Charter School of Boston, he could single-handedly do that. No one in the state should have that authority. The pending legislation would remove the requirement of union sign-off for in-district charter school renewals. The pending bill also establishes a new class of district schools, challenge schools, in which stakeholders would be able to collaboratively develop a 2-year plan to improve student achievement at level 3 schools. I can say with absolute authority from my own experience, the flexibilities that would be granted to level 3 schools under this legislation are absolutely essential for their improvement. This is a critical provision of this bill. There's one other point that I'd like to make this morning. I often hear from legislators who initially supported charters in 1993 that they don't think that the charters have done a good enough job of sharing best practices to district schools. To those with this perspective, I extend you an invitation. Come to Up Academy Boston. Come to Up Academy Dorchester. These are Boston Public Schools with BTU members. Quite literally, we have designed these schools to copy the practices of the highest performing charter schools in Boston. This is best practice sharing at its best. In closing, I'd like to reinforce that the pending bill is not just a Commonwealth charter school bill. This is not just about lifting the cap, as important as that is. There's a lot more at stake in this bill. By allowing the Horace Mann charter schools created in 2010 to continue their work and by empowering districts to intervene more aggressively at level 3 schools, this bill catalyzes vital initiatives that reinforce one another and help to create a rich educational ecosystem that drives better outcomes for students. The products of the 2010 education reform law are no longer an experiment. They have become a model, yielding game-changing results at real schools with real students. I urge the legislature to act to continue accelerating progress and expand access to high-quality education to more students who are currently stuck in low-performing schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Scott, for those compelling remarks, but even more for the demonstration of possibility inside the district that you have put on. Congratulations. Our final speaker of the morning will be Greg Schell, who is an investment banker with the firm of GMO, and we know that investment banking is one of our key industries, offering a lot of jobs in eastern Massachusetts particularly, and one of the jobs of education is to prepare young people for those incredible opportunities. So Greg is a businessman, but he's much more than that. He's a passionate believer in educational opportunity, served as chair of the board of one of our great charter schools in Boston, Roxbury Prep, and I'm very proud to say he is also a member of the board of the Boston Foundation. Greg Schell.
Good morning. Good morning. This is great. People clap before you even say anything. This is that feels good. It's good to be with you all. I want to use the brief time that I have to offer this following statement. I think we all have great respect for all the complexity and for all the ambiguity that exists around our legislative process. There are any number of challenges to taking forward steps just because the issues themselves are that complex. It's just the case that this issue isn't one of those. As time goes on, what's required to move student achievement gains becomes clearer and clearer every day. The data is in already. The research has been done. Parents are ignited by the possibilities that they see in the education reform environment here today in Boston. And most importantly, the student achievement gains that we now know are possible for our children in greatest need continue to improve because of the reform investments that we're talking about this morning. Now, because there's so much passion, but also a lot of misinformation in this debate that distracts from what's really important, I want to make a few things very, very clear. The first of those is that we're fighting for system-wide change, system reform, where every single child, emphasis on every, has access to an excellent high-quality education, period. We're fighting for the kind of reform that allows school leadership the support and the autonomies that they need to determine the best path forward for educating the children in their classroom. We're fighting for the kind of reforms that aren't distracted by a school's format, be they a district or in-district charter school, a parochial school, a Catholic school, but that only recognizes that there are two kinds of schools. Those schools that are working for their constituents and those schools that we know for sure are not working for their constituents. There are only two types. And in general, those schools that are not working require bold, transformative leadership. That's what we need in our public schools. I'd submit to you that the central issue, almost above all else, is our ability to marshal the will required to acknowledge when something's working and to acknowledge that in many places the status quo simply isn't strong enough to defend. And finally, I'd just like to point out that many of us stood here on this very staircase in 2009 fighting for exactly the same things that we're fighting and talking about today. We heard all the arguments then about how this is going to present so many difficulties for the district. We heard the arguments for how many kids would lose out. We heard how it was going to be harmful to the teaching profession. And I'd challenge anyone who says that there was a sort of malignant result to our educational environment. Because I believe that any fair-minded look at what has happened says that thousands of children were able to access a higher quality education than they were before because of the reform efforts, not in lieu of them. But because of all the children who've not yet gotten that opportunity, we're back here again. And we call on the legislature to support this legislation. Now, I say this almost tongue-in-cheek, but we can come back if we need to. If our call today isn't strong enough to produce the kind of results that we need from the legislature to enact the kind of bold leadership that we think is required, we can come back. But the truth is we don't need to. We're calling on you all to do what you know to be the case, which is to give the reform movement here in the city of Boston and across the Commonwealth further opportunities to give to every single child what we know is possible for them to have, which is for them to access a high-quality education with no excuse, with no reason offered for why they can't have it, with no reason offered for why they shouldn't be able to have it right now. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to a proper vote on this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg. Because the reforms enacted in 2010, both the expansion of independent public charter schools and the district reforms and opportunities are working so well, we have an opportunity in urban education that I don't think any other part of the country has to make this work for every child. How can we shrink from that opportunity? How can we stop short when it is so clearly within our reach? But you can help us keep going. And I think your presence here, particularly the children and the parents' presence here today, speaks more eloquently than any of our speakers could about why this matters. So thank you all for being here. I know that many of you are going to be taking this opportunity, and we encourage it, to stop by your state senator's office and to make your voice heard as to this critical issue. We only have a few weeks to get this done, so we need to bring some urgency and intensity to it. Those of you who would like more information on the details of the legislation, there are packets on the table over there that you are free to take. So again, thank you so much for being here this morning. Let's win this. Thank you.